we need to remain aware that it is an all-embracing love, a love which is also supreme intelligence, which is directing and guiding the plan. To put it in another way, it's the divine will which brings about the orderly progression which we call evolution. Now, many more scientists than before are of the view that statistically and otherwise it would have been impossible for a steady unfoldment to take place as it has done unless there was guidance from somewhere. A mind which has such infinite powers that it could work out or express itself on this scale, which is no scale at all. There's no scale to measure it. Perhaps we need to be conscious that it is not a plan for us human beings only. HPB says that everything has to pass through the human stage. In that sense, perhaps we can say it is for human beings. But the human beings to be are now in other stages. And they too are being guided delicately, invisibly towards the end of conscious perfection, a self-awareness of the one reality which comprehends all its splendor. And if there are certain seemingly human abilities, qualities, virtues, attributes, these have unfolded little by little even in the pre-human stages. We owe a tremendous lot to the unfoldment which has taken place before we became human. We can at no time repudiate our links either with those who are coming behind us in the stream of evolution, all those drops of water which will flow after we have gone past, nor can we, unless we are very foolish, refuse to recognize what has gone before us. There is this close actual bond which integrates everything at whatever stage it is. This is one of the messages that the Gayatri mantra gives. Om, the sacred word, stands for that indivisible reality which exists at all levels. So the Gayatri says Om is Bhu, that is everything which is at the material level. It is supporting it, guiding it. Om is also Bhuvaha, the subtler plane of existence which interpenetrates within us and outside us. This world which is visible to the ordinary human being. Om is also all the action, the movement which is taking place at still subtler levels. And in the Gayatri mantra, we say, we meditate upon this, that all that happens, all that is in every level of existence, from the grossly material to all the interior regions, is that one indivisible thing which cannot be denoted by any name or label. And this fact must inspire us in everything that we do. That's what the Gayatri mantra is for. But there are many facts which are not apparent unless we develop a certain sensitivity. In the Christian scripture, there are the well-known words, I may not be quoting accurately, look at the fowls of the air and the lilies of the field. Who looks after them? Who feeds them? Who clothes them? They don't need clothes. But the fowls of the air, certain of them at least, need to be padded well in feathers to be in the temperatures to which they are sent. But if we look at the world of physical life around, it is amazing how every creature exhibits an extraordinary intelligence, perhaps only to survive and look after its young. Some of them show extraordinary intelligence. The penguin, which dives into great depths of water, is able to adjust itself to the pressure, to the temperature, and to everything else. And the whole earth is adjusting itself so that life may proceed. all that is the universal intelligence, the one intelligence. It is the intelligence which is working in us when we are really intelligent. We are often clever, but not so often intelligent. And there is only that intelligence, that love, which takes care of everything. So either physically or spiritually, we need not struggle as we do. If we turn to the spiritual, we tend to get certain tensions into ourselves because we want to progress. We want to achieve. But we must remember that life is love. The love which is referred to in the invocation, O hidden love, embracing all in oneness, which is like a mother looking after countless infants. That's why in the Mahatma letters it is said there is no such thing as failure. And therefore there is no disappointment. Because within the outward appearances, there is this great power at work. And it is a creative power. The human being tends to believe that he can create, be original. Sometimes there are persons who think that they are unique because they are so talented. There's genius in them. But it's all, if it is real, it's all that one power which is at work. And so when we try to create out of arrogance, we destroy. But only when we can harmonize with everything that exists, that we can be truly creative. We could say then that the whole process of manifestation is not only unfolding the faculties which are obvious, one by one the senses develop, the emotions have to be trained, the mind becomes more perceptive, but the creative quality of consciousness opens up. We have not come very much to that stage. But what we call the higher nature in Theosophy is this creative life. The creative faculty, as it is many other things. It has often been said that the buddhi manas, the clear mind, the enlightened mind, is a mind in which there is profound harmony. The buddhic faculty and especially when buddhi is blended with this Atma or the true self, is not only aware of harmony, it is harmony. But it is also creative power at its greatest. That power is being revealed as the whole process goes on. And perhaps we can think a little later about what role our studies, which may be called philosophical, religious, scientific, etc., help to awaken the creative potential within. But turning somewhat our direction, let us try to be more conscious that we are not functioning only at this outer level. The subtler levels are in constant relationship with this outer level. And we tend to forget that. There are impacts which are coming from the inner levels, just as there are impacts from outer levels. And we are ourselves creating vibrations which affect us. This has relationship to our creative potential. In one of the Theosophical books, it is said, we are building by vibratory attractions. Man is a self-conscious entity. He presides over his own building. By his thoughts, he strikes the keynote of his music and sets up the rhythms that are the most powerful factors in the continual changes in his physical and other bodies. Every moment of our life, there is this constructive work which we have to do, which is part of the total constructive work of the universe. Those who are familiar with Masonic philosophy will know that it speaks about the building of a vast temple of unimaginable proportions and beauty and dignity. And it is by the participatory work of many workmen that the great architect of the universe is able to bring about this, the erection of this holy temple. If St. Paul spoke about every one of us being a temple for that power to reside, we can say the same thing of humanity in general, because this power of self-awareness makes it possible for us to take part in the creation of something through not only our physical perceptions, but our responses at the inner levels, which we call astral, mental, or whatever else you like, because in different traditions they are given different names. And there is an artistry involved in that. There is also a science which has to be learned, and a total comprehension, which is a philosophical perspective. All that goes to help us to become truly creative and cooperators with the great builder. Sheldrake, in recent times, has spoken about the field, morphogenetic field, where he says are the designs for everything. Of course, Plato spoke about the archetypal world where design exists, and everyone who is participating in the process of creating this temple must become aware of the design, because only what is in accord with that design can last. Nothing else can. Now, this metaphor of the temple is only one. Sometimes they have spoken about some great design being woven on the loom of time. It gives you a different picture. You can speak about a master artist who is creating a wonderful symphony in which everyone has a part to play. And there is a lovely Sufi story which makes it clear that unconsciously every creature is helping to build up this music. It is said that there was a crow sitting on somebody's, the gate of somebody's home, and every day he came and sat there, and he made these raucous noises which human beings don't seem to appreciate. So he was driven away. Then God stopped everything, and he said, one of the players in my orchestra is missing. What has happened to him? I don't remember the whole story, but it suggests something, that the qualities which are necessary, the manifold qualities, are being developed through the strength of the tiger or the grace of some other animal, or perhaps even through the cleverness of the fox, or whatever it is. They are all helping to bring about higher levels of creativity. According to the grand design, and to be aware of the grand design, we have to be aware in a different way. That is what we were speaking about earlier this morning, not through mental processes. It is what we sometimes call intuition, insight, clear sight, etc. And it is by having some little idea even of one part of the design in which we can participate that life becomes inspired, harmonious. Then there will be no such thing as boredom. Why do we want entertainments? The fishes of the sea and the birds of the air don't have to produce entertainment. It's just enough to live. It's so inspiring to live. And in fact, if we have some idea of the deep purpose, not an idea in the ordinary sense, but if we have this inkling of the deep purpose of our life, then it's always inspiring, always drawing forth something greater from within us, pushing us onwards. So perhaps for the rest of this morning, we can consider how this power to know and to participate creatively can develop within us. As you know, consciousness is valuable, more valuable, as it enhances its own responsiveness. Again, I will give you a quotation. The more impressions it can answer to, the more useful does it become. For only those to which it can answer can reach the consciousness. It's a two-way process. Unimagined beauties, exquisite sounds, delicate subtleties touch the walls of our prison house and pass on unheeded. Not yet is developed the perfect body. We can amend it and say bodies that shall thrill to every pulse in nature as the Aeolian harp to the zephyr. And it's not only this physical body, because the physical body cannot answer by itself. It has to vibrate in tune with the inner bodies. And then only together we respond to everything. The physical body, for example, may be in confronting a person in tears. Let us take an ordinary example. And there may be no response. But it is when the astral part of our nature, the emotional part, also is in relationship, that we begin to feel that there are tears there. And then the mind also has to come into the picture. So all of us at some time, all that we are has to work in an integrated fashion. It's because we don't work in integrated fashion. We are so concentrated on our own outward nature and the outer side of everything else that our responses become rather dull. And when responses are dull, relationships are inadequate. Only when you are aware, you are related, and related harmoniously. Let us say there's a marvelous flower. Every flower is marvelous. If you are not aware of it, if you are thinking about something, you have no relationship to that flower. But if you are aware of its beauty, you are related to it you can be related to it at a very profound level. So it's important that the consciousness should respond, and that consciousness is in all these fields. And the ability to be aware of the innermost fields where the design exists is also of great importance. My main point is that the plan embraces all the different fields where action is taking place and must take place.
The following program was produced by the Theosophical Society in America.
what really is freedom? Freedom is absolutely essential for growth, for the flowering that takes place in what we call evolution. Scientists have pointed out, some scientists, that evolution itself seems to function, operate on the principle of freedom. Freedom at the physical level, the vegetable being freer than the mineral, the animal freer than the vegetable, the human being free because of the power of his mind in ways that the non-human creatures do not know. So the principle of freedom is at work. Yet there is no freedom without limitation, because order is also a governing principle in the whole process, which is manifestation of the reality at various levels, planes. So freedom exists only within limits. For unlimited freedom would mean chaos. People play games like football or hockey, tennis, in a field. The field is limited. It is marked out. If there were not a well-marked field, there would be no game. Just kick the ball anywhere. It may fall into a pond. And what the players are able to do within the limited field, they cannot do if there is no field. Through the game, certain qualities develop. Working as a team, coordination, alertness of mind, agility in action, and so forth. But all that is not possible if you can kick the ball anywhere and go after it over the unlimited field of the earth. In the Bhagavad Gita, there is a chapter which is called The Field and the Knower of the Field. We can change it a little bit and speak of the field and the player in the field. And what sets the limits are what we call laws. The great mind, the intelligence and love of the universe, mark out the field within which we are asked to act. All laws set limits to action. And what we call karma is the great law working invisibly, which moves everything, as the Light of Asia says, towards the good. And it does so by insisting that your play must be within certain limits. Your freedom to act is within bounds. If we think of every incarnation as a field, then there are limits set. The circumstances in which we are born, the racial characteristics we may inherit, the sex of the body which we have to wear, and many other things put limits to our activities. The activity is not just physical, it is the activity of the entire personality, the emotions, the mind. And as the Gita says, not for a single moment can we remain without action in this field. When we think, we feel, we want, everything is action. And we have to learn to act freely but responsibly. And if we really ponder this, we see how the great love, divine love, is helping the onward progress of everything. On one occasion, Krishnamurti said, when you feel happy, you take it for granted. And you think it's fine. Why don't you take it for granted when you have to suffer? Perhaps it's all part of the boundaries within which we have to act. When there is suffering, we feel there is something wrong. But what is wrong? Is it a pain which arises from somewhere outside ourselves? Or are we responsible? Of course, if we believe that what happens comes from outside, we have no responsibility. When we feel joy, we feel we own it. It's our right. But when we experience pain, we feel somebody else is responsible. Can that be so? If we are responsible for some of it, we are responsible for all of it. And to learn about the limits to freedom, the freedom which is so essential for growth, is terribly important in our lives, both as a community, human community, and as individuals. And everything that happens either to humanity as a whole or to each of us is pointing to this. Where does our responsibility lie? Where have we tripped up? If we revert to the thought of the game, playing the game, there is no failure or success. If we are real sportsmen, it's just part of the game. And in the sport of life, of which we are all part, there is also no failure, which we already mentioned. We fail only to play again. When we fail, we learn certain things and we strengthen ourselves. And then we may find ourselves in a different field, playing a somewhat different game. Today, you are in the United States of America, and later on you may find yourself in China, which the American may mistrust, but he has to learn that both have their own value. So willy-nilly, we are taken from one thing to another. We have to learn to strengthen the good within ourselves. And so, the law which we call karma, which is not exactly the law of action and reaction. H.P.B. called it the law which brings about the good. We can say it is the law of harmony, the law of progress, the law of limitation, many things, because each description makes us aware of some part of the law which another description doesn't. But it is that which helps everything to move, to progress, to awaken itself. For that law there is no difference. It helps all equally. In beautiful words, Edwin Arnold says in Light of Asia, it's worth reading that passage, that law sees to it that the mother has milk to nourish her baby. It also sees to it that the young snake has poison in its tongue. To us, there is a difference in the two. But in the great plan, everything has its own purpose to preserve that justice which sees to it that everything lives and grows and brings about the fulfillment of the plan. If we could only get a glimpse of this, how the law works, the law of karma and all the laws of the universe, then we would not rebel and feel we know better. We waste a tremendous lot of energy in struggle. In fact, many people think of life as a struggle. But life is not a struggle. We are in the school of life. Life is a game where, through which certain virtues are strengthened in ourselves. Life is a teacher who at all times is watching. Life is love. Nature has sometimes been called mother because she watches equally over all her children, provides them with what is needed for their nourishment, protects them, sees that beyond a certain limit they don't harm themselves, brings them back to where they are secure. And when we resist learning, when we resist understanding how it all works, and we depend on our own small ideas of what should be and what should not be, what is good for ourselves and what is not good for ourselves, we really retard our own progress. This is one of the important things that has been pointed out, that when a person sets himself or herself on the path of occultism, that means that there is some understanding of the direction in which progress must take place. Then that progress is much more rapid because you know where you are going. If you understand what the law is trying to bring about, then we know in what direction we can move. If we don't keep to those limits, we will be brought back. Perhaps gently to begin with, but if we don't respond, there may be greater pressure. So we should not think of the law of karma as bringing punishment and giving rewards. In that little essay at the end of Light on the Path, it speaks about a state, a sphere, which is beyond reward and punishment. And one comes to that when there is understanding of the law. So in the school of life, we learn what are the limits to freedom, learn to be responsible, because the great law says that the progress of everything is equally important, and we cannot go against that. We learn above all to love. Now, in a sense, there is a limit here also. Not really, there is really no limit to freedom or to love, but when we are within the field, we have to learn limits. That love has to be without attachment. You can't say that I love these persons, I love this situation, and not anything else. It has to be unconditional love. And that is what everything is moving towards. That's why we are not given the freedom to choose with whom we will be. Today you may take a train or a plane and go and say, I'll settle down somewhere else. But if you are escaping from certain people by doing so, in the next incarnation or some incarnation after that, you will find yourself there. Nature won't allow it, because the whole movement of evolution is towards a love which is unconditional, a freedom which is responsible. For everything, there is a point of balance, and we have to discover that. So let us examine this part of the plan this morning. The situations which appear to be helpful and those which appear not to be helpful to us. Are they really so? Or is it the resistance within us which makes it seem as if certain circumstances and situations are unhelpful?